This is Andy Purwar for ID Boxing, and I'm joined by Matchroom's Frank Smith here in Sheffield. Frank, firstly, how are you?
I'm good, mate. That was quite good, that was, the way you saved that there. I won't say it, because I don't want you to get, Is the other one still going?
It is, but I'm not involved there, Frank, and we don't need to talk about that. Obviously, we're here with ID Boxing now. We're here in Sheffield at that as well. Dalton Smith headlining your first next-gen card in a while. There's a lot of excitement building around Dalton, Frank. From yourself and from your perspective, how special of a talent do you feel Dalton is?
Yeah, look, he's a brilliant talent. We've known it for a long time. He's just 11 fights in, and he's got a huge future ahead of him. And he's someone who wants to move quickly as well. He doesn't want to wait around. He wants to go for the big opportunities. You mentioned there the next gen shows. Our first year with DAZN was really about building big events, big shows, and it's good to get these next gen fights back up and running now. Dalton has got the opportunity in his hometown Saturday night to go in there, win the vacant British title. He's got over 4,000 people coming Saturday for this show, which is amazing. Bearing in mind the short time frame we had as well. He's been wanting us to come here for a long time. He's got long-term aims of going to Hillsborough, selling out a show there. So, to come and do this it's exciting and looking forward to it. But yeah, it's huge talent. We've known it for a long time with Dalton Smith, and very excited about the future with him as well. Because, as I say, he's willing to move quickly and into those big fights. His dad Grant has done a great job with him. And he's the same. He's 100% behind him and believes what he can do.
Before we do come on to the future with him, let's just start off with this weekend. Samuel Mason, the man in the opposite corner, Frank. What should people expect from this fight?
I think it's a good fight. Samuel Mason's an experienced fighter. Our aim was to get Dalton Smith that British title challenge. Originally we were supposed to fight Akeem Brown. I thought he was getting in the background. Sonny Edwards causing trouble somewhere, as always. Akeem Brown was originally the original opponent we were working towards and was approved by the board. Samuel Mason, I think he's had 22, 23 fights. Experienced fighter. Double the professional sort of fights that Dalton's had, and I think it's going to be a good fight and a good learning fight for Dalton as well. Dalton needs to go out there and put in a big performance, get a big win in front of his hometown crowd. We want to see a big stoppage from him on Saturday night.
You mentioned the future earlier on with Dalton, Frank. What do you see being the most likely outcome? I know you've got the Casey Benjamin fight, which was ordered by the board beyond this bout. Kay Prosper's been calling him out over social media, amongst other names. What do you think is the most likely route for Dalton, to try to win the British outright or to move quickly beyond that into the European scene?
Look, I think, as you say, he's got Casey Benjamin. He's got to make a defence against. Should he win on Saturday night? That's a fight the guys are interested in as well. But if a bigger opportunity arises as well, Dalton's ready to go. He's not going to, like I say, he's not going to wait around. If there's big fights come up, they believe in his talent, as do we, and we believe he can go in there with some of the best now.
Sandy Ryan, huge fight for her in her rematch with Erica Farias. How much pressure is there on her shoulders to right the wrongs of what happened previously?
Yeah, look, Sandy Ryan deserves a lot of respect, because a lot of fighters in her position wouldn't go straight back into that fight against Farias. It was a tough night in Nottingham back in March. It was a tough fight for her, but she wanted to go straight back in there. She knew that she could beat Erica Farias, and you have to respect her for that. She could have gone and had some more learning fights. I think that was her third fight or fourth fight. When she fought Erica that first time round. So she could have just gone down a route of just some easier fights, get her confidence back. But no, she believes she can beat her, and just seen her over there. She's in great shape and great spirits as well, which is most important. So she can go in there, and I think she'll do a job on Erica Farias, and like I say, a lot of respect for her, because from here she could go straight into a world title shot after this, off the back of this fight, if she goes in there and does the job.
You mentioned that, and with Sandy moving forwards, is Saturday night, is it simply about getting the win, or does she need to look amazing? Does she need to look special to ensure that her career is picked back up as to where it was before the first fight?
No, I think she needs a great performance, obviously, to get everyone believing again in her. But I think the key is get in there and get the win. And from speaking to her just now and seeing her in camp and seeing the dedication and what she's put herself through over the last couple of months, it's not just the last 2 months of training or 3 months of training, it's all that time period that she's had since March, reflecting on it and thinking, how can I improve and how can I get the win? So I think you're going to see a special performance from her. She's a great fighter. We believe in her, and she believes in herself. Otherwise, she wouldn't go and jump straight back into this.
Jordan Thompson, a man who has had people very excited since he signed with yourselves and his recent outings. We know about that explosive power, but going in with someone who's known to be more durable, Vasyl Dukain, is a big step up for Jordan. What are you hoping to see from him in this bout?
He's in the ring now. He's looking sharp, looking in great shape in there. Jordan. It's funny with Jordan. I've known Jordan since I was a baby. We grew up together, Jordan and I. So he's. I feel quite close to him. But this is his time. He wants to step on now. Vasyl Dukain, as you say, he had a good fight against Chris Billam-Smith not too long ago. Mike Perez as well. He's been in there with some talented fighters and people who have got much more experience than Jordan in the professional game. But Jordan is another one who wants to move quickly now. He believes there's huge opportunities for him and both at cruiserweight and in heavyweight in the future. He's a special talent and he looks the part, talks the right way, so I think he's got to get in there, have a big performance on Saturday night, because everyone's just going to compare it to others who have fought Vasyl previously. But looking at him now, I think we've seen some great stoppages from him in his last couple of fights. I think you're going to see the same on Saturday.
Kieron Conway obviously returning to action on Saturday night. I didn't actually realise this until I saw earlier, because I know he's facing Ammo Williams on the Canelo Triple G trilogy bout in September. I imagine the purpose of this fight is just for Kieron to kind of shake off any ring rust and to get ready for that one.
Yeah, look, Kieran's been out the ring for a long time. He obviously had a bit of an injury towards the end of last year after his fight against Metcalf. He was always planning to go on this show just as a sort of comeback, get back into the ring fight, and then we made the Ammo Williams fight about 3 weeks ago. We managed to make that fight, which is a great fight. And to be fair to Kieron, he's never shied away from any challenge at any point of his career. He's always been willing to take risks. He's always been willing to take real fights. This is it's good to get him back in the ring ahead of that against Ammo Williams, and that's on the September 17th Canelo Golovkin card.
Campbell Hatton returns once again. Frank, how important do you feel it's been that he's been taken off those massive shows that we saw in the earlier parts of his career? And do you feel like you've seen him, I don't want to start saying flourish and making him out as if he's the next greatest thing, but maybe more of a relaxed Campbell Hatton instead of what we'd seen on those big fight nights? Yeah,
look, he naturally had a lot of pressure because of his dad's name, plus the shows we were putting him on. It was all part of building that Campbell Hatton brand, and he's I think he's shown some much more mature performances in his last couple of fights. He's learning a lot under his uncle Matthew, and I think he's got a massive future ahead of him. I think it's a bit like when you look at Conor Benn, and we've said this before, when you looked at him in his early stages, who would have said that he'd get to where he is now? And you look at where the opportunities Conor Benn's got ahead of him. Campbell Hatton can do the same. I think it's just about managing him the right way, letting him grow and mature with a little bit less pressure, as you say. And I think hopefully we'll see a good performance on Saturday night from him. From there we can start looking to step him up.
With Campbell, obviously those who are within boxing understand it's going to be a slow building process. Do you think the pressure just comes from that fan base that his father has and the fan base that have kind of followed his journey, and they just want to see basically the second coming of Ricky Hatton? I'm not saying Campbell will be that, but is that where the pressure comes from, Frank?
Yeah, look, I think you look at anyone who's a famous son of someone, like I say, you look at Conor Benn, you look at Chris Eubank, you look at Campbell Hatton, all these fighters, before they even start, like a fighter who's making their debut normally is they got the pressure of selling 200-300 tickets. Away from that, there's nothing else. Here, these guys are going in the ring, and on day one, everyone's looking at them and judging them. Everyone else gets their opportunity to build their way up over time and get used to that pressure. They're going straight in and getting it. And the reason for that is because of what their dad did before them. But everyone takes a different period of time to build. He's still a young guy. I think he's 21, 22 years old, Campbell. He's got so many years ahead of him. So there's no rush with him. But it's because of the eyeballs on him, people are questioning it. If he was just another, boxer coming through 7-8-0, people wouldn't question it. You know, it's because the eyeballs are on him and the promotional machine's on him as well.
You mentioned two names there who there was a lot of talk about them potentially meeting in Conor Benn and Eubank Jr. Frank, what's the latest with that? Because for the last few weeks it's been a fight that's been spoken about, a potential catch weight between the pair of them. Last maybe week or so it's gone a bit quiet. What can you update us on?
Look, it's a massive fight if it can happen. It's a huge fight. You know, it's a fight that everyone would, you know, of all ages would be interested in. You know, you've got Conor Benn, who's a young, relevant, you know, has pushed himself, got in the position he's in. You've got Eubank Jr, who's been in there with some, you know, had some great fights over the years, and this has got everything it needs to be a massive fight. Let's see how things play out. You know, big fights take a long time to make. It's not like, it's no different to anything else. Every big fight takes a long time to make. And you know, let's see. Conor Benn's got other options as well, but you know, that's definitely a fight we're interested in making.
What has been the hold up with it, Frank? I saw Conor and Chris kind of engage in a tweet. I think it was around Jake Paul tweeting, and then Chris replied saying about stepping in and what have you. But he said that the contracts just weren't best suited to him. Can you just tell everybody as to what the hold-up currently is?
I'm not getting involved. You know, I'm in both. You know.
Yeah, I know. So you've got. I know you've got to be impartial. But
I'm going to wear my, you know, the football scarves with one name on one and half scarf, and I'll sit there in the front row like this and just be quiet. So, look, these things, like I say, anything of this size takes time. It's not just how easy would our business be if it was just that be that, and we'll do it here and on this date, perfect, all done. That'd be great. Anyone could do my job then. Anyone could do it, you know, be easy. I'd love it if I could do that. But these things, you know, these things take a lot of work. So if that fight happens, it's a massive fight. We'd love to see that fight happen, but Conor Benn has other options as well. So let's see.
If we don't see that fight next, Frank, you mentioned Conor having other options. What do you see being the most likely outcome for him away from Junior?
Conor Benn will take on any challenge, as we've seen over the years. He is ready to go in there against the best. You know, so we worked through all those different names, and you know, he wanted to fight Kell Brook before. Now that was one after he beat since retired. Keith Thurman, he'd go in there and fight. You know, he will take on anyone, Conor Benn, and he wants big fights now. He doesn't want to just wait around. He wants them now. So you know, we'd love, as I say, the Eubank fight, great fight if we can make it happen. And that's what we're working towards. But there's other options there for Conor Benn.
What's your cut-off point for that fight then?
Last week, no. I don't know. These things, they go through a process. So let's see how the process plays out. It's very difficult to say. Because if you ask me about any fight like 6 weeks ago, like Joshua Usyk took a while, didn't it, to go over the line? And every week it was like, oh, it's going to be this week, oh, it's going to be this week, oh, it's going to be this week. It happens. But things take time. So let's let it play out naturally, and you know, hopefully we can get that over the line.
Just sticking with the welterweight division, you've got another man who's out in America getting ready for a big fight on Saturday night, Michael McKinson versus Vergil Ortiz Jr. Talk to me about this fight, and how difficult of a proposition does Michael pose to Vergil?
Yeah, look, Michael McKinson, fair play to him. He went out there in late March to fight Vergil Ortiz the first time round, pulled out on fight week, had 2 or 3 opponents during the week, and then got an opponent on Thursday night, went in there, did the job. Look, it wasn't the most enthralling, entertaining fight, but you know, Mikey had been training for something completely different. But now he gets his opportunity, and you know, big thanks to Robert Diaz at Golden Boy as well for making it happen, because it's a fight Michael McKinson wanted. And Michael McKinson, you know, Lee Eaton sent me a picture of him earlier actually, and he's literally, I've never seen him in such good shape. This is his moment to go out there. You know, he had his US debut. The good thing is he got used to all of the differences in fighting in the US. It's a big difference for a fighter, like the pressures of going out there, and he's now experienced that, and he can now go into this Vergil Ortiz fight sort of calm and composed and relaxed. He's been through it all, and he possesses a lot of attributes that are going to cause Vergil Ortiz problems. Don't get me wrong, Vergil Ortiz is an amazing fighter, and we've seen what he's done over the years, but I really believe that Michael McKinson can cause him problems. You know, and if he can go in there and beat him, you know, he's WBO ranked #1 Vergil Ortiz, I believe, still. You know, there's some big nights out there for him, and this is, you know, he's focused his whole life on this. His whole family have. You know, his dad's in his corner as well. His brother's there, and yeah, big opportunity for him.
You mentioned earlier kind of a delay announcing rather the Usyk-AJ 2 rematch with everything around broadcasters and what have you. That's obviously landed on Sky Sports here in the UK now. Frank, I just want to get your reaction to that, as we haven't had a chance to catch up since, and how was that received by DAZN?
Yeah, look, there was always, when AJ did his deal with DAZN, look, DAZN are AJ's long-term broadcast partner for the future of his career. There was always, the Saudi fight was outside of the deal because of the structure of the deal that we'd done for the Usyk rematch.
Just on that, did DAZN know then before making that deal that the Usyk rematch would be outside of their deal?
Yeah, no, it was all very clear. You know, DAZN were aware, everyone was aware. That fight was done, and the terms agreed prior to that, so they knew what the deal was. You know, it's interesting. Obviously, the first fight was on Sky Sports box office. You know, Anthony Joshua undoubtedly is the biggest pay-per-view star in UK boxing, if not, you know, in terms of numbers in the world. You know, up there, him and Canelo, really. You know, no one comes close to it. So, you know, I think that it's interesting because if Sky would have made as much of a push that they did to get the fight, I don't know, it doesn't all make sense to me, if I'm honest. But it's a massive fight. AJ goes out there, gets his opportunity to get his belts back, and, you know, Sky Sports box office is the platform for it. They're working on the other broadcasters in international markets. But, you know, AJ's long-term future is committed to DAZN.
On that front then, Frank, provided, well, say if AJ is unsuccessful in the rematch, how much of a hit does his commercial value take, and where does his career go from there? Because it's obviously on DAZN's part, it is a big risk if he was to be unsuccessful.
Look, I think the big difference is Anthony Joshua, win, lose or draw, he brings entertainment for people. You know, he's always done that. People love watching Anthony Joshua, hence why he's done the numbers he's done. If Anthony Joshua is fully focused on winning that fight against Alexander Usyk, I believe he goes in there and wins against Alexander Usyk on August 20. You ask what changes if he was to lose? Look, if he fought Dillian Whyte, if he fought Deontay Wilder, you know, any of these names, they are still huge events. You know, with or without belts as well. You know, even if you didn't have a belt, even if it wasn't the undisputed, like, these are huge fights. And, you know, there's massive nights still out there for him. So I don't think the commercial element ties in necessarily to the losses. Like I say, fully focused on going in there getting a win, and I believe he'll do that. But, like, too much of fighters' careers is based on you've got to go in there and win. Obviously, everyone wants to win, but look at fighters who are still relevant. Derek Chisora is a perfect example. A fighter who's still relevant, win, lose or draw, because of what they've built. Anthony Joshua is a cut above everyone else in that sense that, you know, people have continued to follow him over the years. People are still interested in him. So, you know, he's still the biggest commercial draw, again, up there with Canelo, in boxing, undoubtedly.
Where do the international rights for the fight land, Frank? I don't think I've seen an announcement on that front yet.
That's something that the Saudi team are going through now, Skill Challenge, and will make an announcement very soon on.
Do you have a price point for the UK? Oh, sorry, price point's been released rather. That is slightly more than what the first fight was. Do you know as to why there was that bit of an increase there?
I guess that they had to do it to make the offer they made viable. That's the only reason I can think. I think it's £27. It's the most expensive UK pay-per-view we've seen, but that's what they had to do to make it viable for whatever deal they did.
I've seen some interviews recently. I've actually spoken to Ben Whittaker, and it seems like there's a big chance he could be on that undercard. Now, Eddie's previously said that Sky wouldn't really have any involvement in how that undercard lines up in Saudi. But do you expect to see Ben Whittaker now on that undercard on August 20th?
Yeah, look, not for it. I think the reason if Ben Whittaker goes on the card, 258 Management, AJ's management company, they had Sully Sissoko originally fighting on the card. Sully Sissoko unfortunately is injured. He's going to go on a card later in the year, and I think Ben Whittaker, if he does, it will go in the 258 slot that they had there. You know, we work closely with Freddie Cunningham. I've been speaking to him about it over the last week or so. So that's not a Sky-led move. That's something from AJ's management team, you know, to get him an opportunity on their card. So, you know, that would be the reason behind that if that was to happen. So there's been discussions going on between myself and Freddie, and we'll see how things play out, and our Saudi partners as well.
Did you watch Ben's debut this past weekend?
I didn't watch it all if I'm honest, but I saw clips of it great finish. You know, he's an entertaining guy. He's gonna be like Marmite, isn't he? People will love him or hate him. But I think he's got a big career ahead of him, and you know, he's got a big opportunity to to become a big star. And saw Chris Billam-Smith with a great win as well on that card. You know, we've got a great relationship with Chris, and that was a big win for him as well.
I just wanted to touch on that. Obviously, CBS fighting on Sky this past weekend. I know for recent years, Matchroom have been more on kind of a fight-by-fight basis with fighters rather than tying them into long-term deals, unless obviously the likes of Conor Benn or Dalton Smith, for example. But what's kind of your understanding of how things are looking long term there? Is there a sense of frustration that there's been a number of fighters recently, Liam Smith being another who's gone over to the Sky platform, either likes of Savannah Marshall, Hughie Fury, who previously they've moved over now to the Sky platform since you split. Is there a frustration there?
In my opinion, in a year we've lost, we've lost Savannah Marshall, as you say, Hughie Fury, Liam Smith, and Chris Billam-Smith had one fight with them. So Chris Billam-Smith, it was the end of his contract. He got an offer to fight on a one-fight deal, nothing further than that. Jake McGuigan said, would you be able to do the show? And we said, we can't fit it in with the schedule right now. And it was a good opportunity for him. But we got a great relationship with Chris Billam-Smith. We promoted a number of his recent fights. So I think there's still a lot to be done there. I think ultimately, like Liam Smith leaving. Liam Smith left because he got offered. And they love this, everyone loves to talk about this platform piece. The truth is, they're paying huge money that maybe doesn't always make commercial sense, but the fighters are going to do what's right for the fighters, understandably so. They have to do what's best for them and their career. So everyone can say, it's the platform, it's this, that, the other. Ultimately, they made a huge offer for Liam Smith. And Liam Smith's at a stage of his career where he needs to be, he wants to make the most amount of money. I think we did a great job with Liam Smith. We had the Anthony Fowler fight sold out at the Echo Arena. You had the Jesse Vargas fight at Madison Square Gardens. So I think we did a great job for him. It would have been great to carry on working with him, but he made that decision based on what was best for his career at that time. So, I think our job, we're fully committed to the fighters who are with us. That we will continue to grow and build, and there's huge opportunities for them.
Just one thing that's popped into my mind, which I just wanted to circle back to. Speaking to Ben Shalom last week, he said Eubank Jr, to his understanding, was exclusive to Sky. Obviously, just on that kind of Ben fight, is that the case as far as you're aware?
No, look, he's promoted by Wasserman Boxing. They're his exclusive promoter. It's not promoted by Boxer or anyone else. So, that's we're working with Wasserman Boxing on a deal for the fight.
Just to touch back on the heavyweights, Frank, you mentioned Derek Chisora earlier as well as somebody who, without those, doesn't need to be winning to be entertaining fights. A lot of reports recently about he might be stepping in with a trilogy bout with Tyson Fury. Your understanding, Frank?
I've heard about it. Don't know. I actually met with Derek the other day. He spoke about it a little bit. I don't know. You never know with Tyson Fury. One day he's retiring. One day he's giving his money to charity. One day he's going to fight AJ, one day he's going to fight Usyk, one day he's going to fight Derek Chisora, who knows? And he's going to fight 4 as well. Thanks Rob Tebbett for that addition. But I don't know you never know what to believe. He might end up fighting Eddie at this rate, if he carries on shouting names out there, but it's all fun and games.
Tell you what, Eddie versus Tyson would do a few numbers.
Yeah, I mean, he would absolutely destroy him, wouldn't he? Can you imagine?
You can be his chief sparring partner, Frank.
No. Because I wouldn't really. Maybe I'd build his confidence a bit. Maybe act like he'd land some punches.
Just want to get your thoughts as well on the Canelo Golovkin announcement on UK pay-per-view. It hasn't really gone down too well, Frank, as I'm sure you're aware. What was the decision and the thinking behind that?
It was obviously a decision led by DAZN. I think the second fight was pay-per-view on BT Sport Box Office as well. The second, it's a massive fight. It's a massive fight for the sport of boxing, and they made a decision based on, the commercial decision with it. I can understand people saying because they're paying a subscription platform. We've got huge shows building up now that we're going to announce very soon. A huge schedule running from September to December, and lots to look forward to. So you're going to have some great shows for that subscription, and I think. Canelo Golovkin, as I say, it was a decision that DAZN made, and I think people will still tune in and watch it at that time of the morning. And our big push now is to deliver huge fights and for the subscribers.
I think from gouging social media since the announcement, Frank, the frustration seems to stem from when yourselves and DAZN originally linked up. The whole no pay-per-view shows on DAZN is what continues to be brought back up. There's a clip circulating of Joe Markovsky saying this fight would not land on pay-per-view in the UK. Do you understand those frustrations now from a fan's perspective as to where you're being told by DAZN, by the guys high up at DAZN, in Joe for example, in yourself, in Eddie, saying DAZN pay-per-view won't be happening, and yet all of a sudden there's this fight, obviously you've got AJ Usyk too, which will be a pay-per-view platform, and so on.
Look, I think ultimately business models evolve over time. You know, DAZN have built a huge platform, a huge following of boxing subscribers, and like I say, we'll continue to deliver great value to the subscribers. You know, pay-per-view for certain fights is required to make it commercially viable. As we've spoken about before, you know, it happened when we did the first Canelo pay-per-view against Bivol, which delivered huge numbers. You know, that's sometimes to make fights happen against competitors who are pay-per-view platforms. It's very difficult to compete if you're not playing on the same level, you know, level playing field. So, you know, things do change. You know, everyone says things that maybe over time they go, whoa, well, that doesn't sound like it did 2 years ago. But 2, 3, 4 years ago, that wasn't the model. Now it is. And, you know, like I say, our focus is to continue delivering huge events on the subscription platform and huge pay-per-view events. And if that means we can deliver massive events, massive fights, that's what we'll have to do.
Right, Frank, we will leave that there now because I'm sure we're probably coming towards the end of this workout because we've spent quite a while there discussing a variety of topics. Good to speak to you for the first time under ID Boxing. I'm sure it won't be the last. And yes, thank you for speaking to me and ID Boxing.
Good to chat, mate. Good luck with ID Boxing. Looking forward to it.